Good morning, everybody. Happy Tuesday. Today, we're going to talk about the gender gap. And no, you'll notice that I've left out the word pay because, honestly, in EMS, from my experience, I have not seen a pay gap between genders. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Somebody's more than welcome to, bring that to my attention, but I've not seen that specifically. However, there is a bit of a gap in how the different genders are treated. This is not virtue signaling. This is not trying to kiss up to the Me Too movement. I think the Me Too movement had a lot of good, and I think it started off as a very good thing, and I think it got abused, unfortunately. And unfortunately, there are issues with it being abused in EMS. That's not what I'm talking about. There's a lot of actual harassment, and there's a variety of forms of abuse that do go on in EMS. And EMS is a very hypersexual group of people. It is. You can't, there's jokes about, EMS, extramarital sex, whatever. There's a lot of jokes about it. We're generally a very hypersexualized group of people. But unfortunately, we also are not good at boundaries. And so when you have people who are hypersexual that don't have a good sense for or respect for personal boundaries, and when they're knowing when their advances are not welcome, or ignoring, or knowing that they're not welcome but continuing to ignore it, is a big fucking problem. So, where do we see this? Well, unfortunately, one thing I have seen all too often is younger females, especially new hires, being the subject of some level of predation by older levels of management. Suddenly an attractive female shows up and magically the director is, nice to everybody. You can kind of do the math on how that goes. But that happens a lot. There is a lot of quid pro quo that goes on in EMS. There's a lot of times where people are promoted based on it. And it's just one more example of where people with credentials are often overlooked for those with a good throat game. But that aside, as with everything, it's a double-sided, because unfortunately there are people that do genuinely welcome it. There are younger females coming into the profession that welcome that attention and don't do anything to stop it. But then there's even more that don't want it. That's not welcome. And you're not allowed to. It's one of those things where it shouldn't be the way it is. This is such an old school problem, if you will. And you would think that we've moved past this, but people are people, and history likes to repeat itself. So, unfortunately, yes, there continues to be a good bit of sexual predation, not just by older members of management. Happens older members of field staff, younger members of field staff. It happens every fucking where. And again, I'm not shaming people who are being flirtatious, who are, trying to, going through the normal life of mate selection, because let's face it, people in EMS usually don't have much of a life outside of EMS. So that's why a lot of times EMS people end up together, is because, hey, you're just not around other people. Again, I'm not attacking that, not saying that's a bad thing. But again, there are boundaries, and when your advances are not welcome on people, shut the fuck up. Carry on with life. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Unfortunately, you have people who it tends to fall in one of two categories. You have your men who are hyper aggressive and will invade personal space and not take no for an answer. I cannot tell you how many times I've heard stories of people, women, being cornered at stations, being forced into close personal spaces with somebody that they didn't want to be, that wasn't, in a call or something like that, where you obviously sometimes on a call you do have to get up in each other's space because that's just the way shit is. But that's not what I'm talking about. That is rampant, and that is not like an old school thing. That is a very current thing. That is a very, very current problem. And I'm not again, this is not virtue signaling. I'm not throwing my my own gender under the bus, but because I'm not a perfect person. I've done a lot of dumb shit in my life too. But this is not okay. This has gone past the point of, oh well, it's a few isolated incidences. No, it's not. This is not isolated. This is very, very nasty. So you got the guys who are hyper aggressive, invading personal space. Then you have the people who are a little more passive aggressive, but that won't stop. They will continue to be persistent, continue to push boundaries, and doing it in this very like Mr. Nice Guy kind of way. Like, people try to be, they're trying to come off as your friend. They're trying to, show up your significant other. They're trying to, do all of these things that make them look good with the intent of pushing, and hoping that at some point you will give in. And again, not shitting on people who want to flirt. Cool, it's life. But boundaries. Boundaries. And I'm not even talking about just general respect, respecting relationships and whatnot. I'm specifically talking about harassment level problems. And what's difficult is it's very hard to prove a lot of these things. And this is where I do feel for a lot of women in EMS, because a lot of times you are isolated with a partner, and outside of when you're in the truck, if you're in an agency that has like a Samsara system or some other kind of video recording system, you don't have, it's not like we have body cams. You don't have the ability to record all of your, interactions with people all the time. I mean, unless you want to get a body camera, cool, good for you. So it's very hard to prove that. It's very hard to prove intention. So I get it. I get it that it's not always things that you can take to the police. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it is things you can take to the police or to management. And what's really, really disgusting is when you have management at agencies that is presented with proof, that is presented with evidence of things that have happened, and they sweep shit under the rug. Or they promote those people who were the offenders in spite of that evidence. They'll like magically clear their HR files, or just ignore it. Just outright ignore it. And I'm sorry, if you have a sex-related record with HR of any kind of sex or harassment or anything like that, that is proven. Again, people make allegations all the time, and we've seen it over and over and over again. The famous example being Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. There's plenty of times where people make false accusations on both sides. Both genders do it. It's not. This isn't a war of the genders in that sense. There's shitty people that are male, female, otherwise. But when you have demonstrable proof of a pattern of behavior, and it is ignored, and that person is put into management, all you're doing is feeding their bad behavior. You are feeding that beast, and it is going to bite you in the fucking ass. So it's appalling. I mean, it's appalling. It's not surprising, because if you worked at EMS for any length of time, you see this shit. This isn't anything new. However, it is still objectively, ethically appalling to me how much of this we sweep under the rugs and we just ignore. And I don't blame a lot of women for not speaking up about it, because they're put in a shitty situation. No, I don't believe that all of EMS everywhere is this good old boys club. There's plenty of it, don't get me wrong, but I don't believe in this, in an oppression narrative. for any gender, either way. A lot of people like to swing on both sides of that fence. I don't. Just live your life and be a decent human being and stick up for what you know about yourself and what you believe. But when it comes to business, because that's what this is. EMS is a business, period. That's why EMS agencies have HR. They're a business. They have to manage those human resources. But we've all seen it. We all know it. We all see when there's quid pro quo going on. Happens all the time. Happens everywhere. I would hazard a guess, and this is a guess. This is not a statement of fact. I am not alleging that this is hard fact. This is just my opinion that every EMS service, everywhere, has some sexual harassment issues that they are not dealing with, or that they've dealt with inappropriately. Take that for what you will. Again, I understand a lot of things that are hard to prove, but there's also a lot of things that are ignored. So let's do better, people. Let's do better. And it's not even just sexual harassment. Like, there's a lot of people who think that they have a right to be hyper physical with people in EMS. I'm sorry, unless you're like best friends with somebody and it's a good natured joke, there is no situation in which you should be laying hands on another provider. If you're irritated at somebody, bitch slapping them in the back of the head, no, not appropriate. Getting angry, puffing out your chest, raising your voice at people in a threatening, intimidation kind of way, no. It's one thing if your life is in danger, but it's another thing if you're just pissed. You're pissed that somebody did something you didn't ask them to do, or somebody messed up, and rather than use it as a educating experience, the person, you just fucking yell at them and intimidate them, make them feel like shit, make them feel threatened in some way. Like, fuck you, seriously. If you get off on treating people like that, you have no business dealing with people. Go work on a manufacturing line. Get away from people. And you know what's sad is there's a lot of these people who are sexual harassers, predators, whatever, that have kids. And no, I'm not a perfect father. I make a lot of mistakes. And no, I don't air all my dirty laundry on the podcast, but I'm pretty free with my shortcomings. People that want to talk to me directly. I got no problems. No problems being open about that. But what kind of model are you setting for your kids? That this kind of behavior is okay? You're setting them up for failure. You're setting them up for trauma. If you haven't traumatized them already, shame on you. Shame on you. You fathers who have daughters, you especially should know better. Because I would venture to say that if someone treated your little girl like you treat some of these people out here, that you'd be contemplating an orange jumpsuit too. So shame on you. Read the fucking room. So, what is the issue here? There is clearly a gender gap. I would argue that it's not necessarily the gap that most people think. It's clear it's not. I again wholeheartedly argue it is not a pay gap, and I would say that people of both genders get shit on plenty in EMS, but there is a gap here in what we tolerate, both at an organizational level and on a field staff level. And we need to do fucking better. We really do need to do better. There's no other way. There's no other way around it. We shouldn't be promoting these people. If here's another thing. If you have to, if you're in a situation where you have to restrict a provider to only work with males, that's someone you should be letting go of. Why are you holding on to someone like that? Because you either have enough evidence or you're pretty damn close. So why the fuck are you tolerating this behavior? And then why the fuck do you promote them? Why do you give them shit? It's fucking ridiculous. And now, obviously, all abuse is bad. All abuse of authority is fucking bad. But this is one that we just don't talk about enough. We don't address it directly. It's just, oh, well, that's just the way it is. Fuck that. Fuck the way it is. The way it is what has gotten EMS to the shit show that we have become. And that shit needs to stop. So stop promoting people who have predatory instincts. Stop promoting people that are physically threatening to people. It's not hard. That's all I got for you guys. Be safe. Talk to you in the morning. Bye-bye.